Yeah, come on up, Detective.
Yeah.
Ms. Chavez, you swear or affirm you'll translate from English to Spanish, Spanish to English to the best of your knowledge, skills, and abilities?
I do.
Okay. Yeah, you can come on up.
Thank you, Ron.
Oh, you swear or affirm testimony about to give the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do, Your Honor.
All right, state your name and spell it for the court reporter.
That's Detective Jason Pearson, Pearson.
All right,
And I work with the City of Sandy Springs Police Department.
all right, as soon as they get him up here. So Detective, just remember when she's doing that, just speak in shorter sentences so she can interpret. Okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
I just mess up myself sometimes. All right, 22 CP 214006. Guillermo Franco, 99 days without indictment. And right now there is no bond, so we'll address bond after the hearing. So it's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 counts of possess or control any material depicting a minor in a sexually explicit conduct. 1, 2, yes. 22 CP, we need a 22 CP 14006. 5 counts of possess or control material depicting a minor sexually explicit conduct. Right, go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Detective Pearson.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
How long have you been with the Sandy Springs Police Department?
Since the inception of the police department, from July of 2005, I think, is when the department started. Before that, I worked with the Fulton County Police Department from 2002.
Okay. And what is your current assignment with the Sandy Springs Police Department?
I work with the Criminal Investigation Division as a fraud detective.
And how long have you been so employed as a detective with the Criminal Investigations Division?
I made the transfer in 2017. I believe it was maybe September, October 2017.
And are you post-certified?
I am.
Were you post-certified on October 12th of 2022?
Yes, I was.
I'm going to direct your attention to that date, Detective. Did you receive, well, let me strike that. Let me ask, were you working that day?
I was, yes.
Okay. And did you receive any calls for assistance that day?
On that evening of October the 12th, I was instructed by a CID supervisor to respond to the 5600 block of Roswell Road in reference to a person shot.
All right. And do you know approximately what time you arrived out on scene on that day?
I'm not sure exactly. I would say around 11 o'clock that night, just based off recollection.
Okay. And where, in fact, did you report? What was the address?
The address listed on the police report is 5674 Roswell Road, but just to know that the shooting incident location was an actual vehicle. The vehicle was in the southbound lanes of Roswell Road, just north of Lake Placid Drive.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yes. And how far away is that from the 5674 Roswell Road area?
It's the same area.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that in Fulton County?
Yes, it is.
All right. So once you received that call and went to that address, what did you do once you arrived on scene?
I was briefed by the shift Lieutenant Ramiro, who was working the scene location, and I received a quick briefing. I learned, and I'm going to speak I'm going to break it up for the translator. I learned that a person had been shot in the leg. Patrol had tried life-saving techniques to applying a tourniquet, and I learned that 2 people had stayed with the truck and had been transported to the Sandy Springs Police Department for further interviewing.
Okay. And you mentioned the truck. What kind of truck was it?
Yes, ma'am. It was going to be a Ford F-250. I'll give you the specifics. Let me 1 second and I'll redirect exactly to that.
Ms. Chavez, is it too fast or is it good?
You want me to get closer or?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Can you hear me? Is that better? I speak up.
This was a Ford F-250 displaying Georgia license plate. T is in Tom, F is in Frank, Q is in Queen, 4435.
Okay. And while on scene and after being briefed, what did you do next?
We conducted the preliminary investigation and basically what we were doing was holding the scene of the truck. And so I conducted a plain view of the area, did a basic quick canvass while we were waiting on a search warrant to be obtained for the searching of that vehicle.
Okay. And at that time, had you identified the passengers in that vehicle?
They had been identified by patrol. Me personally, no. I just got there, so I haven't met or spoken to any of them.
All right.
The answer to that question will be yes. Patrol officers had met with them.
Okay, and once patrol officers made an identification of the person that was shot, where were they positioned in that car?
The person shot was driving the truck.
All right. And then where was the other passenger seated, according to the investigation?
In this case, the defendant was the front right passenger. And the other person known to the investigation was located in the rear passenger side, to my knowledge.
Okay.
Now, once you began to canvass the area, secure the area where the Ford truck was located, what did you see? I was looking for camera evidence to see if it had captured anything from surrounding businesses. And I also looked specifically around the truck. I was able to see a live ammo round, a 40 caliber ammo round outside of the truck. And remember, the doors are open, so you can see within. Of course, we weren't looking, digging around or anything like that. But I made mention of the ammunition that I found. Okay. And you said that was outside on the concrete. What side of the vehicle did you see that in? Passenger side. Was it rear or front? It was in the rear portion, if you're asking where it was in proximity toward the truck. Absolutely. Did you observe anything else? I was basically just doing some on scene. I was talking to the female police officer that rode up initially. She, trying to find out more about the shooting victim, what had happened. Basically, she pulled up and was kind of dumbfounded by this. This was nothing more than a vehicle hazard, basically, a vehicle parked in the middle of the roadway. So she was kind of catching me up to what she saw, what she observed, and what she had done. And what did she tell you? Basically saying that the person she couldn't have a conversation with, he had lost consciousness. She saw blood spurting from the person's leg, and that's when they applied tourniquets and went into life-saving measures at that point. She also said that there were other people that were located, the two persons on the outside of the truck, and that they were I believe finding on I'm going from my memory, but again that they were located on the driver's or the passenger side of the truck, which is where I inferred. Okay. And who's this detective? What's the detective's name or officer's name who was conveying this information to you? The name of the patrol officer, and I'm going to try to get her name correctly, but her name is, I'm going to spell that for the record, spelled D as in David, E as in Edward, A as in Adam, N as in Mary, I as in India, C as in Charles, I as in India, S as in Sam, DMICs. I don't know her personally, and again, I have very little contact with patrol, so okay, that makes sense. And so now you've gotten this background information. Did you in fact see anything else around the vehicle, or anything in plain view in the vehicle? Again, the ammunition. I saw what I believe to be ammunition. I saw a weapon located in the rear passenger floorboard. And again, other than that, we do a very quick, perfunctory, plain view look into the vehicle. Okay. And at this time, were the two individuals that were riding in the vehicle, had they been secured or had they already been sent to San Diego Police Department to be reviewed? That's accurate. They went to the police precinct. All right. So after they were taken to the police precinct and out on the scene, did you happen to look for any surveillance videos? I did. I looked. There was one business open, which was the Love Shack. I would learn that their camera evidence had no evidentiary value, that there was nothing, and that was actually open. There was a person I was speaking with. Then there was two closed businesses with cameras that would appear to be in good proximity to where this truck would come to a stop. All right. So it was safe to say that at this time you were conducting an investigation regarding the shooting. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. All right. And then after that, what happened in terms of your investigation? Well, we waited on the detective that was working at the precinct, and just kind of give you a way that things work. They're being fed information, the detectives from on scene, and they applied for search warrants. In this case, we were getting one specifically for the interior of that truck. we learned that the information had been sought and obtained for a search warrant for the truck, and at that point, the CSI Detective Warner, began his investigation. I'm a complete backup to him. Of course, we don't touch anything. We're looking for DNA evidence, all kinds of things that can be clouded or polluted. So basically, I was kind of backing him up, whatever he needed.
All right. And you said you obtained, actually search warrants were obtained.
That's correct.
And when were those search warrants obtained? That day, on the 12th of October?
Yes, ma'am. Well, let me clarify. I can, on name and refer to the search warrant itself. Kind of when we get close to whether the calendar flipped to the 13th, so that I don't recall exactly the date, but I will tell you right now. Okay. It appears that this was the search warrant, and the timestamp of this search warrant, it shows to be on October the 13th, 2022 at 12:13 in the morning, so just after the change of the date.
And was that for the vehicle?
That is for the vehicle, yes.
Okay. And once the search warrant was obtained, was the search warrant executed?
Yes, it was.
And what was found as a result of that search warrant?
It was a two-part search warrant, basically, insofar as Detective Warner, he did what was called a Faro scan, where he scans the vehicle, and he also he received the weapon that I could see in the back seat. Okay, and I know that he also listed in his search that there were other weapons located. And again, like I said, I just backed him up basically if he needs anything. So the search warrant is conducted primarily by Warner, so he's preserving his own evidence as he goes along. I know there to have been ammunition and additional weapons located in the car, as well as a cellular phone.
Okay. And then at that time, the two passengers that were inside of the vehicle, had they been identified once they were at the Sandy Springs Police Department?
Yes, they were.
And who were those individuals?
Let me go back. The defendant seated there, it was Yair and I have Franco hyphenated Argo.
All right. And who was the other passenger?
And let's see if I can refer back to my notes on that. See if they have them listed. I beg your pardon. Let me go to mine. He's not listed in the report by the officer there. So, Carlos Macedo Mayo is the best way I can, my best pronunciation.
Okay. And where was Yair Franco seated in this vehicle when this took place?
I learned him to be seated in the front passenger side of the Ford 250.
Okay. And once Mr. Franco was at the Sandy Springs Police Department, was he interviewed?
He was, yes.
Had he signed Miranda warnings and waivers at that time?
He did. This was from the other detective. Detective Voronkoff had Miranda read in Spanish, and he signed the form and agreed to talk to him.
All right. And were those statements recorded?
To be killed. Detective Voronkoff had informed in this case, the defendant, that we were taking the cellular phones pending this investigation. Again, like what I'd seen on the scene was weapons and ammunition, and I knew there to be more than one person in the car. So there was a lot of uncertainty, but again, this was in the infancy. We had no access to the cameras to see if it would tell us anything, and so we were just basically gearing up to investigate this case further.
Okay. And where were those phones, or the phones that were seized in this case? Let me ask you this: how many were seized in this case?
There were three. There was the one located within the truck, and both of the persons that had been transported, including the defendant.
Okay. Let's say that. Who do they belong to? The phones that were taken?
Yes, the phones were in the possession of Yair Franco. His phone was taken and put placed in the property, and the same can be said for Mr. Mayo.
Okay.
Who was in interview room 1.
Right.
And then and the third phone was the other phone that was recovered within the vehicle.
Okay.
And believed to be the victims.
Now, once you determined that, let me ask you this: when did you determine that learn that the victim in this case had been deceased? Because you mentioned that in your testimony just now.
A few hours later, that I would learn officially that he was deceased.
All right. And could you state for the record this victim's name?
Yes, in this case, it's Franco Luis Esteva.
Okay. And once you made that determination, what did you do next in the investigation?
Well, we continued to go with the evidence that we had, and that included, like the next day.
And what, if anything, did you discover from reviewing those cameras?
I discovered through this that two people had left the scene of the truck. You can clearly see the car coming to view, and it basically lurches to a halt and jolts where it's seemingly striking an object. And at that time, you can see doors opening and people walking away from the vehicle.
How many people did you observe in that video footage?
From what I observed two people walking away, two people staying behind, and then so it was my belief from the video footage that I saw there was 5 total people at least in the car.
All right. And once you made that decision or that determination, did you view any other video footage out of the scene?
I also reviewed Il Forno's. I saw Cricket's first, and then I observed Il Forno's, which was, in my opinion, is a better quality of camera. And the same applies. I saw persons exiting and leaving the vehicle. One looked to have like a guitar strung around his back, it's like reaching out a guitar, and another went walking away as well. So they were never identified.
Okay. And at this time, had there been a determination of who may or may not have shot the alleged victim, the victim that was killed in this case?
No, ma'am.
All right.
No.
And When did you receive information, or did you receive information from the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office about this case?
I did. I contacted the DA, or I'm sorry, not the DA's office, but the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office on October the 14th, and I spoke with the pathologist that performed the autopsy of the decedent.
Okay, and what, if anything, did you learn from that conversation?
Well, I learned one, and this was a little problematic at the time of, we didn't know where the clothes ended up. We couldn't find the clothes, which is it's quite important. You can see there's certain things, whether it's a press contact, you can infer anything, but you're looking for stippling, right, the blowback from the weapon, these types of indicators. So I explained to the pathologist what we had and what we don't know. Again, typically the first thing you do is remove clothing. It's believed that the Moorside Hospital folks, because we had officers go to retrieve this clothing and it was gone, so that they had thrown the clothes away. So I made him aware that, okay, this was evidence that just we can't provide to you. But it basically said where it looked like the bullet it was like a shot through the artery above and an exit wound through the left calf. So that's what I gleaned from the conversation.
And after you obtained that information, what next steps did you take in the investigation?
Well, I'd spoken with CSI Detective Warner again, who continued to work this case. He continued, so basically imagine he's conducting a search warrant in the middle of Roswell Road, okay? So they basically made the weapon safe and they would take the quick scans, and he moved the truck back to the secured lot, or at least the towing company did. We had that truck moved back to the secured lot to where he could do a more thorough investigation of the bed, the cab and the bed of the truck, because there was numerous things in the bed. So, and I learned through Detective Warner, who continued on with that search, that he found another gun located in the bed of the truck, and that gun was found to be stolen, which he would confirm through GCIC.
So how many weapons total were found as a result of the search warrant executed on the Ford truck?
To my knowledge, it was 3 guns, if I recall correctly, again with them.
Okay. And had you learned or discovered any evidence that potentially that the shooting actually happened inside of the vehicle?
Well, that was the only thing that could have been, just based on the position of the victim as the driver. There was no windows blown out, to my recollection. I can't recall, but all systems and everything that we had observed, all evidence would indicate that he was shot inside of that truck.
Okay. So now you've gotten a search warrant for the cellular phones that were obtained in this case, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And what phone belonged to the defendant in this case?
Yes, ma'am. I'll go to the... Okay, so in this, it was a black Samsung Galaxy, and I have this labeled as Yair Franco cellular phone, and the search warrant inquiry into this phone was search warrant 031671.
And when was that search warrant obtained?
Let's see, the search warrant was obtained on, shows to be October the 14th at 11:57 p.m.
Okay, and then once that search warrant was obtained, what was the basis for, what were you all looking for?
Within my experience of shootings and drugs, these are things that you look for. We request images, we request messaging, we request phone logs, and that's what we look for.
And once you obtained that search warrant for the defendant's phone, what in fact did you discover?
Well, I was going through the image section, and it's pretty short when you go looking into it. So when you click on the image section, it just basically shows small thumbnails of images, of just pictures that you would be taking. As I scroll down, it was a lot of images of pornography, in my opinion, legal pornography. It showed just seemingly adults or people over the legal age. And as I continued to scroll down, there was a conglomeration of just overt images of children. There was numerous pictures that I could see, and as I looked closer, I believed it to be a child, a prepubescent child, so I stopped everything I was doing at that point.
Okay, and once you stopped, what did you do after you stopped?
I went and rewrote another warrant for the images that I found, child pornography images.
Okay, so that means you went and got a search warrant to look specifically for the things you saw based off the initial search warrant to include child sexual abuse material. Would that be correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and when did you get that search warrant?
If I may, it shows to be signed October the 18th, 2022 at 11:24 hours.
Okay,
and this was specifically search warrant SW-031718. And it too was for the black Samsung Galaxy, the same model. And
what did that search warrant seek to find?
Well, it changed the scope now, at the very least, to the images, the child images of illegal pornography.
Okay. And once that search warrant was obtained, and was it in fact executed?
Yes, it was. Yes, ma'am.
And was there a phone extraction obtained?
Yes, ma'am. This search warrant was basically. Pardon me one sec. So this phone extraction was the one preceding. It was already a phone extraction of the phone. This was just granted my search of the phone, if that makes sense.
So I guess to go further into the search.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when did you begin to review the extraction of that phone to look for child sexual abuse material?
It would have been directly after obtaining the search warrant. This was all done in one movement, so to speak. I went to receive the warrant, and then I went back to the lab and continued the investigation.
And when you continued, what in fact did you see?
I saw additional images. I would research I researched the chat logs, and I found a thread under the WhatsApp information, which showed that there was a conglomeration of seemingly illegal pornography.
What is WhatsApp?
Oh, WhatsApp's it's a talking platform, an application where people communicate. It's a communication platform.
Right. And so now you're looking and you see a thread on the defendant's WhatsApp. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
And how are you able to identify that the WhatsApp that was on the phone was in fact the defendant's?
It's all part of the extraction of the phone. So anything that is on that hard device that's being abstracted by the Celebrate system, it shows you everything that's stored within the phone.
Okay. Did it also show you the defendant's information associated as being the owner of that WhatsApp?
It shows the telephone numbers, and so that's basically another report that's done up by the CSI detective, but the phone numbers match.
Okay. And the child sexual abuse images that you saw, when I know this might be a little uncomfortable, but for purposes of probable cause, I need to be able to establish what was actually seen. So there are 5 limits taken in this case. Is that right?
That's correct, Your Honor. I'm sorry, Counselor. I'm sorry.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. I'm so sorry.
If you could start with the first image that you saw on this thread from the defendant's phone that you described as child sexual abuse material.
Yes, I'm gonna draw direct from the if I may, I'm gonna draw direct from the report because I don't necessarily I don't have the image stuck in my brain, so I'm gonna be reading a little bit. It showed the genitalia is apparently prepubescent and can be identified by the fatty tissue around the outer labia. The age of the female based on the image may be between the ages of 6 and 9 years old. And there's a white fluid-like substance on the female genitalia. On the right side, now they're split-screen pictures, so basically that's to say there's 2 pictures on one image. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. On the right side, there's an overlay of a female child. Child appears to be between the ages of about 2 to 5 years old. It can be indicated by the small proportionate facial features, excess fatty tissue on her left hand, which is visible. I do notice that the child had pigtails, and she's basically holding a penis near her mouth. Okay. And that was the first. Do you want me to continue on with the 5?
Yes, we have 5. Counsel, please.
Okay.
Second image, please.
And the second image, female child is in the center of the image with her legs spread and pinned back, with her genitalia on complete display. She appears to be between the ages of 3 and 6 years old. The proportion of the child, it shows it's hard for me to explain, but she looks very, very young, extraordinarily young.
And how would you know that based on your?
I have children, if that matters. But again, we're talking ages below 5 years old. There's absolutely no development that would indicate that the child is of post-pubescent age.
So, for example, no pubic hair, things like that.
Correct.
Okay.
There was no pubic. In this case, you're able to see 2 images of 2 males over the child where she's covered completely in semen, and basically you're unable to see the face of the males, but you can tell that they're grown men just based on their genitalia.
And that's the second image.
That is the second image. Yes.
What is the third image?
Third image. There's again 2 images spliced into one. The left image shows a child wearing a pink T-shirt with animals printed, wearing panties, seated next to an adult male. Males in the seated position wearing no shirt and a pair of shorts. The child appears to be approximately 4 to 6 years of age. In this case, she's clothed. She's wearing a dress and a shirt and panties. And this was not. In this case, it was rather weird looking. In my opinion, I can't describe it any other way. But that I didn't see anything overtly illegal about that. However, on the right split screen of that same image, on the right it shows on the right split screen of that same image. On the right it shows. It shows a child on her back exposing her vagina with a male penis inserted into the female child's vagina. The child's prepubescent with the fatty tissue of her outer labia, absence of pubic hair and development, small body proportions.
Right.
Child's wearing a black and white T-shirt with the clothing pulled up toward her midsection. Appears that she's looking at an electronic device.
You can go to the 4th image.
Okay. Another split screenshot. And the image on the left shows a prepubescent female ranging from approximately 8 to 12 years old. There's a male's head. All you can see is the back of the male's head. That's in that's basically, it's in her pubic region. It's almost like providing oral sex is what the connotation would look like to me. She's standing with the right leg over his shoulder. And the image on the right hand is a picture, shows a male from the navel down with his genitals visible. The child's face and hand are closed to the male's penis. The cheeks of the female child appear to be concaved. They indicate a sucking action. The child's hand is near her mouth, obstructing the view of what is in the child's mouth. However, it's reasonable to assume there's a penis. In this case, the child appears to be roughly 8 to 12 years old.
Okay. And you should go into the last image, the 5th image?
Yes, in this image, the picture shows to be a split screen again with 3 different images depicting female children engaged in sexual acts. The image on the left shows a child to be holding the shaft of penis with her left hand. The male is lying on his back with no clothing displayed, and the child is seated on the bed in an upward position, somewhat hovering over the male's genitalia while clutching his penis. Her mouth is roughly 2 inches away from the male's penis. She appears to be approximately 6 to 10 years of age. On the other side, that's the right side of the split screen, It shows a prepubescent child lying on her back with her legs spread apart with her genitalia on display. The child appears to be between the ages of 4 to 8 years old, which would indicate the excess fatty tissue of the outer labia and a small proportion of her waist. The adult male penis is in view at the bottom of the image, and the glands of the penis are pressed against the vagina of the female child. Open penis shows to be inserted. Certain females pulled up near her chest. The adult male and child face is not in view in this image.
Okay. And based on, let me strike that. So were all of these images viewed and seen on the defendant's phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Were they all seen through this WhatsApp application?
Yeah, I looked on to that portion of the phone under the messaging, and it was like I said, under a message thread. But what happens is I was able to find the conglomeration of the pictures, I guess, within that app, and because there's a section you can hit on the cell byte extraction, which just shows attachments, and it just showed a long line of several attachments. There were other images, but these were the 5 that I found, I guess, the most egregious, the ones that I could describe the best. But there were other images within that thread.
Okay. Was there other identifying evidence on the phone that linked this phone to the defendant, Mr. Franco?
Well, there was pictures of him. He's pictured throughout the image section, and in his case, again, he's above age, which is fine. I hold no opinion, but he's naked a lot within the pictures. I guess it's his girlfriend that he would tell me later that's sending him nude photos. She's above the legal age, but ultimately, in my investigation, I found there to be the link between that WhatsApp thread and the images that I saw within his image section. If that makes sense.
Yes. Okay. And then, what did you do after reviewing all of these images on the defendant's phone?
Just look at Judge Manning's face. She is thinking what I'm thinking. I'm just disgusted.
Described earlier, I'm a fraud detective. I reached out to ICAC trained detectives that could come and help me process the evidence properly.
What is ICAC? I'm sorry.
Internet Crimes Against Children.
Okay.
And so they could help walk me through this having to explain this was new hat for me. I understand the concept, but basically it was my first case in handling such an investigation. So that's what I did. I reached out to elicit the help from a former detective who's now with Cobb County, and she came over and we reviewed the case, and that's what I did.
And did you execute or obtain arrest warrants after that?
I did obtain the 5 images.
All right. And did you see the person that you identified in this case and spoken about, the defendant, Mr. Franco, in the courtroom today? Everybody remove their mask?
Yes.
Could you identify or point him out and identify the article of clothing that he's wearing?
Yes, he's the gentleman wearing a blue shirt with a gray undershirt, wearing a black mask between the lady and the gentleman sitting at the desk.
You want me to ask the record to reflect that Detective Pearson has identified the defendant? Noted. That's all I have, Judge. Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Rhodes.
Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you.
Switch around. Don't forget about Ms. Chavez.
Yes. Going back of Detective Pearson, is that correct? Yes, sir. Going back to the incident in the car. Was the firearm that was discharged recovered? Well, at the time of the investigation, we didn't know which firearm it was. So there was firearms, plural, that were recovered. So we really didn't know which one at the time. Okay. One of those guns that was in the cab? Yes, sir. That's correct. Where were the other 2 firearms located? There was later we learned again. There was one that I know of that was, I believe, in the center console, and definitely one in the rear bed of the truck. Understood. And it was Franco Luis Esteva, who was the driver of that truck. Yes, if I'm pronouncing correctly, and that was yes, sir. He was the deceiving person that was shot and killed. Okay. Was the ownership of the other 2 firearms that were not in the cab determined? They were not. Like I said, the only thing we knew about the one was it was stolen out of North Carolina. I put a request in for that for the report about that weapon, and typically when you run a firearm, it just basically comes back as no record, not stolen. It won't come back. Like in my position, if you ran one of my firearms at the house, it's not going to say it's the possession of Jason Pearson at this address, so you don't get that kind of a response. Do you know who would have been the owner of the vehicle? Not sure if the owner. I'm going off recollection. Yes, it shows to be. Not recollection at all. I'm sorry. This is shown to be owned in the report by Gomer Narvaez Meza. Right. And you mentioned that in subsequent camera footage that you saw, there might have been 5 people inside that vehicle. Yes, sir. One of them being the decedent, and 2 of them were interviewed. That's correct. And the other 2, we don't know their identity, and they fled. That's correct. All right. Going forward into the interview, this occurred at the Sandy Springs Police Precinct. Yes, sir. And a Spanish interpreter was present for that interview. Yes, Officer Laura was assisting. He was an officer that speaks Spanish that was working that evening. Could you spell Officer Laura for the record? I believe it's Lora. All right. You mentioned it was both yourself and Detective Ramkoff who interviewed the defendant? That's correct. Detective Ramkoff had interviewed him prior to my coming back from the road when we were working the scene of the truck. Were both of these interviews recorded? Yes, sir. And those recordings are placed in evidence? They should be, yes. And the way our digital information like that is collected is from our unit's aide, and she'll typically, because we have a new camera feature, she'll check daily and put that with the case file for the DA's office, if that makes any sense. All right. And had you witnessed Detective Ramkoff's interview? I have not, no, sir. Okay. So you have knowledge of your interview, Mr. Franco? Yes, that's correct. I did watch Detective Ramkoff's interview before I came today, though. Okay. During your interview, had you asked Mr. Franco for his cell phone? I did not. I knew that Detective Ramkoff had already taken the cell phone. Right. So Detective Ramkoff had taken the cell phone. That's correct. All right. Since you've now seen that interview, do you remember Detective Ramkoff asking Mr. Franco for his cell phone? No, I believed he had taken the cell phone and had asked for the code, and basically had told him that he would pick that up at a later time during the course of this investigation. Okay, well, it sounds as though the Detective Ramkoff did ask for the phone. To the best of my knowledge, I can't. Now I would be guessing. I'm not sure exactly. And I gleaned that he had taken the phone just basically through the natural steps of the investigation of the very unique incident of the person being shot. So basically, what we knew at the time is that we had a person shot and people in that car with them. So this is consistent with practices where we will try to control and safeguard any and all evidence as investigations unfold. All right. And Mr. Franco had been Mirandized at that point, correct? That's correct. I did see that he was Mirandized. All right, and this interview occurred on the morning of October 13th? Yes, I looked, and it looked to be around midnight. Again, I was still on the scene, but I did, after reviewing that, that's what I was, I looked at the time, and it looked as though his Detective Ramkoff had started interviewing him at midnight. All right, and for your testimony on direct, the search warrant for the phone was obtained October 14th at 11:57 p.m.? Yes, that's correct. And that was the first search warrant just for evidence related to the shooting? Yes, sir. And a subsequent warrant for the child sexual abuse materials was obtained October 18th? That's correct. At 11:22 a.m.? Yes, sir. After Detective Ramkoff had obtained Mr. Franco's phone, at what point was it transferred to you? Well, the phone was taken to the, and I believe that typically if I was doing, I can't answer this because I'm not sure, but it wasn't basically. The phones would have been taken to the property room or the Faro container for the CSI room, if that makes sense. All right. And do you remember the time in which you looked through those phones? Well, I do know because as far as the time gap, it was going to be specifically your clients is going to be the morning, I believe, of the 18th when I had applied for the second one. Because he had come in, after reviewing my report, he had come in on the 17th, and this investigation was still ongoing. We hadn't received any of the information back. So we started looking, and plus that, I definitely would not have known the person to have been in possession of the obscene material, in my opinion, the day before. The day breaks when you turn in and you execute a search warrant. In this case, as it's shown 11 p.m. on the 14th, we will place the I will list as official execution when I place that warrant into the CSI box. Now, the celebrate extraction can happen 2 or 3 days later when they get around to it. So that there's, if you're wondering the delay, that would be it. All right. Thanks. Yeah, I was curious about that. All right, you mentioned the images in question were located in the image section of the phone? Both the image and the chats. All right. Was there any indication that those images were downloaded? Yes. Basically, you can see where. So this was what I was talking to again with ICAC personnel. My question was, because again, I like to think from the opposite side, and this was addressed, and I hope you'll give me a little latitude to answer your question. If you get, I would argue on behalf of any victim, or I'm sorry, even suspect, if some knucklehead will say sent you something that you didn't want to see, correct? let's say that just somebody did that, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is illegal stuff, I don't want it. I thought and questioned that. However, for that to be transferred over from the WhatsApp chat to the image section, it had to have been downloaded. That makes sense. You had to click on the link from the WhatsApp for it to end up in your image section of your phone. It just doesn't matter to click the roll. So if you sent me a picture of SpongeBob, unless I click on that, it's not going to end up in the image link. That's what I clarified to the other detectives.
Do you have personal experience with WhatsApp?
I do not know.
How were you able to determine that functionality that you just mentioned?
As far as what I was just describing?
Yeah.
Again, this was covered. I spoke with two different ICAC detectives specifically with that. Again, is it necessarily illegal for someone to send these images? In fact, even before that, it was expressed, hey, you can't possess this stuff on your phone. Also, though, it'll give a timestamp. There's different timestamps. You can see on the cell extraction of different times of when it's downloaded. It wasn't just all magically the same time of the thread. It had to be accessed, so the times would vary in short increments. So basically, it shows a date created, per se, and it'll show you down to the second, and there were different date created times, if that makes sense.
It does. So you're saying that someone would have had to click on the link that was provided in that WhatsApp in order for those images to have been downloaded on the phone?
Yes, sir, I am. And that was, and I like you, just in fairness to your question, it's a good question in my opinion. I asked the same thing specifically, and that was the collective consensus. I am not a computer specialist. However, this was reiterated by people that are computer specialists.
All right. And in using WhatsApp, is a phone number typically associated with a WhatsApp user?
I think it can be. I saw different phone numbers. And again, I'm not an expert on the social media and the communication. I personally just don't use the things. But like, say, for instance, if you're seeing, you can see messages from like Facebook Messenger. It's a different style code. It's not necessarily a phone number. In this case, there's different phone numbers affiliated, though, that I could see from the thread, I guess, of the numbers used.
Okay. So I'm trying to determine, is it more like phone number based or is it username based?
I would guess phone number, because I saw phone numbers, but like if you could see a person, if it's, say for instance, my wife and we had WhatsApp, it wouldn't say her number, it would use her name because she's a listed contact, I guess. If I know her specifically or know, if I know you, it would be your name and not so much your number, because that also shows on the different threads, is different names.
All right, and in this, particular thread that you were investigating, were you able to determine, like, was it sort of a group chat sort of thing?
It did, yes sir. It did look like a group chat and several numbers.
Yeah, I was about to ask, do you know about how many numbers, about how many?
Just guessing, but it's like a conglomeration of them. So we'll say, 8 plus, maybe there's several numbers, not just 2 or 3.
Okay, and one of those numbers would have been a number that belonged to Yair Frankel.
Well, now I would have to go back over. I would presume so, but what I would be doing just that presuming. All I know is it was under his WhatsApp thread. And so I'm not sure if the specific users, without looking at it, I would have to go back and look at that. I don't know if his is listed within the thread, if that makes sense, or it's his name.
All right, and very briefly, just about the images. When you mentioned, being able to identify the ages of females by fatty tissue around the vagina.
This was an approximation. I would get a span of what I believed that child to be.
Okay. As for the source of, do you know who would have told you or trained you on determining ages of female victims based off of anatomy?
Yes, in this case, it was a female detective who I absolutely, enlisted her help on this case. She was trained in this, and she absolutely did explain this. This is specific training that I did not have. So I very openly and honestly tell you, I reached out for help in this case.
Okay, and do you know the name of that female detective?
It was Detective Reich. She is with the Cobb County District Attorney's Office now.
Could you spell Reich for the record?
Yes, sir. It's R-E-I-C-H.
I'm wrapping up. Just need to see if there's one last thing I need to know. The females depicted in these images, they're unknown, correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
All right. One last question, and I'm sorry, I'm jumping back to the gun incident. To the best of your knowledge, for the best of your investigation, it seems as though the decedent shot himself.
It does. I believe there would be some evidence to support that. Again, what we were finding, I was speaking to the family, trying to do a bit of a background, speaking specifically to the girlfriend of him and what he was like, what he was what he was about. Kind of, it would appear that he was a gun enthusiast. He liked to get a little silly, according to her, and things like that. Of course, at the time that all this began, this was all unknown.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Pearson. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Counselor.
Any further questions from the state? Briefly, Detective Pearson, through your investigation, did you determine by observing the WhatsApp strand, the username and associated, I guess, name and phone number that was associated to the WhatsApp as linked to the defendant in this case?
Let me see. Pardon me 1 second. Let me go back.
Was there a report? Was there a collection?
Yeah, let me go ahead.
Sure.
Let's see. Oh, yes.
And if you could
Okay.
just
I'm sorry.
remember what that username was for the defendant on WhatsApp.
Let's see if I may. I'm going to do a quick reset. I want to observe the thread. Continue your work from WhatsApp stating the following. Franco, telephone number 678 at whatsapp.net. Owner.
Anything else?
There, Judge.
That's it for this detective? Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, argument. Please waive open and reserve close, Judge. Go ahead, Mr. Rhodes.
Judge, I would just briefly argue that there is not a strong connection between the ownership of these images and Mr. Yair Franco. Per testimony we just heard, the WhatsApp account involved a phone number. We don't know whose phone number that is, and the name Franco, which there are several Francos, and indeed the name of the deceased is coincidentally first name Franco. With that, Judge, I would just ask, that all 5 counts be dismissed just for lack of probable cause for possession.
What says the state? Your Honor, we actually find probable cause on all 5 counts pursuant to OCGA section 16-12, that's 100, subsection B8, for it is unlawful for a person to knowingly to possess or control any material which depicts a minor or a portion of a minor's body engaged in sexually explicit conduct. And specifically, sexually explicit conduct means any actual or simulated sexual intercourse, bestiality, masturbation, lewd exhibition of the genitals of the pubic area of any person. All of these things with a person under the age of 18. Clearly enough evidence to support that. This is an interesting case where you have typically a cyber tip or a nick tip where things come. This is not what happened in this particular case. You have a defendant that was actually very cooperative actually with police during the investigation of a shooting. The phones were seized, the phones were collected for the purposes of that investigation. The defendant even actually gave his passcode to the officers to look in his phone. So unfortunately for the defendant, there are other things found in this investigation that brings criminal charges upon him today. We believe that there's probable cause to substantiate all 5 counts. We ask the court to find. Thank you. All right. I found probable cause on all 5 counts. When argued for bond, he's been in 99 days without indictment. Sir, you're statutorily required to give you a bond. Boston, don't forget we got the interpreter. This is no prior arrest. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Rhodes.
Yes, Judge. Mr. Franco is 21 years old. He's been living in Atlanta for the past year, specifically at 145 Northwood Drive, apartment P9 in Atlanta. He's been living there with his cousins. He does have, outside of those cousins that he lives with, 3 other cousins that live in Atlanta as well. He has no children. He graduated high school and has been working in construction and framing around the city. And Judge, he, of course, has no prior arrests. With clear to the court, there is a immigration hold on him as well. So should bond be set for him, he'll still be placed in ICE custody. Though he is, of course, required for bond, we do ask that bond be set at an amount not to exceed $5,000 per charge.
All right, what says the state? Your Honor, we understand that the defendant is entitled to a bond. We ask the court to keep taking consideration the following. We believe that the defendant has no real ties to the community. The actual decedent in this case was listed as a cousin, friend. They kind of go around the city doing odd jobs. We think that's kind of suspect in our mind in terms of his flight risk. But we'd ask Your Honor to set a reason bond at least $10,000 per count. We'd ask that he have no contact and stay away from anyone under the age of 18 years of age. He is to use no computers or social media unless it's work related, and specifically not to be on WhatsApp as part of special conditions for bond and all the normal special conditions that the court orders, including an ankle monitor in this case. No drugs unless prescribed, no alcohol, no weapons. Have an ankle monitor paid for by the county with a 24-hour curfew. Except for court, meet with your lawyer, and medical. You cannot possess a smartphone. You have to get a flip phone that doesn't have any sort of apps. No social media, no communication apps such as Snapchat and WhatsApp. No computer usage. No further contact with anyone under the age of 18. Several more crooked on my. When he gets out, that's where he's gonna live?
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes?
Yes, Judge.
I guess no further contact with your potential co-defendants, which would be the other people listed on Snapchat, since you're not gonna be, or WhatsApp, since you're not gonna be on there, then don't be on there. So, if I were you, I wouldn't communicate with them anymore. The state said 10,000 on each count. Yes, Judge. You said, I say 100,000 on each count. 100,000 per count, $500,000. Best of luck to you, sir.